Jack Elam's famous part in the Best Western opening scene cost him everything. Jack Elam was one of the greats. Elam was a unique and well-known character actor in the American West. His wild-eyed look, gruff voice, and wide range of talents made him a memorable figure in both film and television over a career that lasted more than 4 decades. He carved out a unique niche in Hollywood by mostly playing villains and comedic figures in westerns. His life story is as colorful as the characters he played, starting with humble beginnings, early career struggles, and eventually becoming one of the most recognizable faces in the industry. He was born on November 13, 1920, in Miami, Arizona. Jack Elam had a hard life as a child after his mother died. His father, a mill worker, raised him and his sister. These early years in rural Arizona would later help him play many of the tough, hard-scrabble characters he would play on screen. Life was hard, but the young Jack was tough from the start. At the age of 12, tragedy struck when Elam was involved in an accident that would change the course of his life. While attending a Boy Scout event, he was accidentally stabbed in the eye with a pencil during a fight, leaving him permanently blind in one eye. This injury not only changed the way he looked, but it also gave him the signature lazy wandering eye that became a defining feature of his on-screen persona. Instead of allowing the injury hold him back, Elam turned his impairment into a strength. He used his distinctive look to get roles that needed strange or scary characters before he became an actor. Jack Elam lived a life full of business ventures and odd jobs. He went to Santa Monica Junior College and worked as a bookkeeper for Bank of America for a short time. His sharp mind for numbers led him to become an accountant for film studios and a manager at the Hollywood Park racetrack, where he met people in the industry through his accounting work. This sparked his interest in pursuing a career in the industry, but the transition from behind-the-scenes work to acting was not immediate. Elam's entry into Hollywood was unusual and happened because of his bold personality. He reportedly barged into film producer Samuel Goldwyn's office and demanded an acting job, using his unique look and rough charisma to get it. His persistence paid off when he was finally cast in a small role in 1949. She Should Have Said No. This debut marked the beginning of a prolific career. Jack Elam quickly became a typecast villain in the Western genre, which was very popular in the 1950s and 1960 seconds. His unique look made him perfect for scary roles, and his ability to give powerful, memorable performances helped him become a star in Hollywood. He always played outlaws, gunslingers, and sinister henchmen in a way that was both dangerous and funny. In the 1952 movie High Noon, Elam played a thug who waits at the train station for the legendary bandit Frank Miller to arrive. This was one of his first big roles. His brief but threatening presence in this classic movie showed that he could make a lasting impact even in tiny roles. As his career went on, Elam found constant work, often starring with famous Western stars like John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, and James Garner were two of the most famous actors in Western films in the 1950s and 1960 seconds. Some of his most famous roles were in The Man from Laramie 1955, Gunfight at the OK Corral 1957, and Once Upon a Time in the West 1968. He was a fan favorite because he could play the wild, untamed spirit of the frontier. Audiences loved to hate Elam's characters, and his versatility let him bring depth and complexity to even the most stereotypical of bad guys. By the end of the 1960s, Elam was starting to try out new things in his acting. He was still playing Western villains, but he also started doing more comedic roles, showing off his ability to make people laugh with his timing and deadpan delivery. His talent for comedy became well known, and this change made him more popular outside of the Western genre. One of his most memorable comedic roles was as the bumbling town drunk Jake in the 1969 Western spoof Support Your Local Sheriff. His unique look and ability to do physical comedy made him stand out in the film. Audiences loved this lighter side of Elam, and he continued to shine in comedic roles in movies like Support Your Local Gunfighter 1971 and The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again 1979. His work with stars like James Garner showed how easily he could share the screen with leading men while still being funny. In addition to his cinematic career, Jack Elam was a well-known face on TV. He was a regular guest star on shows like The Twilight Zone and others that were quite popular at the time. Smoke the Rifleman and Bonanza. Elam's range let him play a wide range of roles, from serious dramatic parts to funny guest spots. Elam's longest-running and perhaps most beloved television role came in the Texas Wheelers' 1974 short-lived sitcom where he played Zach Wheeler, a cantankerous lazy father of four, although the show was canceled after only 8 episodes it later gained a cult following, and Elam's performance was praised for its humor and heart. Jack Elam's iconic role in the opening scene of Once Upon a Time in the West 1968, often hailed as one of the greatest Western introductions in cinema history, remains a pinnacle moment in his career. Elam played a memorable part as one of the 3 hired guns waiting at a desolate train station for Charles Bronson's mysterious harmonica character. The scene is renowned for its slow-building tension, silent performances, and Sergio Leone's signature style of blending wide sweeping landscapes with close-up shots of the actors' impressive faces. For Jack Elam, this role cemented his place in Western cinema, but it also came with significant costs both professionally and personally. Jack Elam's role in Once Upon a Time in the West was short but unforgettable. The opening scene, which lasts about 10 minutes, shows Elam and 2 other actors in a wordless standoff as they wait for a train. Leon's extreme close-ups give each man time to show off his personality. Lee's squinting eye and scruffy look helped him stand out, even though he didn't say anything. His grizzled look and lazy eye gave his character a gritty edge that suited nicely with the harsh, merciless landscape of the movie. Leon took a close look at Elam's face, focusing on his distinctive eye, which had always been a signature aspect of his persona. An accident in boyhood produced Elam's crossed eye, which became an important feature of his on-screen presence. His looks imparted a sense of menace, humor, or unpredictability to his performances, making him popular in westerns and evil parts. In this scene, the juxtaposition of silence, the sounds of the creaking windmill, and the rising tension made Elam's performance a piece of cinematic history. However, despite the widespread acclaim for his performance in Once Upon a Time in the West, Elam paid a professional price for this iconic role. The film, and this scene in particular, became so closely associated with him that he found himself typecast in similar roles for much of the rest of his career. While Elam had already spent decades playing supporting roles in westerns and comedies, his appearance in Leon's film cemented his identity as a menacing, rough-edged character actor. Though beloved by fans of the genre, this typecasting limited the range of roles he was offered, making it difficult for Elam to branch out into more diverse acting opportunities. Elam's career after Once Upon a Time in the West continued to thrive, but it was predominantly confined to the Western genre. While he was undoubtedly a master of portraying cowboys, outlaws, and comic relief characters in westerns, the fact that Hollywood pigeonholed him into these roles meant he missed opportunities to explore more complex, multifaceted characters outside the genre. The Western boom of the 1950s and 1960 seconds was beginning to wane, and as the demand for these films declined, so did the number of significant roles available to him. Elam's unique eye had always been both a blessing and a punishment. He was born in 1920. Elam lost the sight in his left eye in a tragic accident during childhood when a fellow boy threw a pencil at him that pierced his eye. The injury left him with a permanently crossed eye and impaired vision, but he turned this into an asset for his acting career. His unusual appearance set him apart in Hollywood, giving him an edge when it came to playing villains, henchmen, and colorful side characters. However, Elam himself often expressed frustration with how his eye became the defining feature of his career. He was frequently called upon to play parts that relied on his intimidating appearance rather than his acting ability. Despite having a knack for comedy and more lighthearted roles, Elam didn't often get to reveal that aspect of himself. Instead, directors used his eye as a visual shorthand for a memorable, hardened, or eccentric character, which often meant that he didn't get to give more nuanced performances. Also, the focus on his eye and rugged look sometimes overshadowed his real acting skills. Elam was known among his co-workers for being professional, funny, and having a deep understanding of the Western genre. He worked with legendary directors like Sergio Leone and John Sturges, and his co-stars admired him for his ability to create memorable characters with little dialogue. However, much of his legacy in Hollywood is based on his looks rather than his full range as an actor. Although Jack Elam may have been typecast after Once Upon a Time in the West, his performance in the film helped solidify his status as a Western icon. The role became a touchstone for the archetype of the grizzled, dangerous outlaw, and his performance in the opening scene is still one of the most memorable in Western cinema. While the movie's success may have limited Elam's career, it also made sure that he would always be remembered in Hollywood. Fans of classic westerns still remember Elam fondly, and his unique face and unforgettable eye are still associated with the best of the genre. He worked well into the 1980s, appearing in TV shows, comedies, and westerns, all while keeping the persona he had built over the years, despite the typecasting and personal problems he faced. Jack Elam accepted his status as a Western legend, knowing that people would remember what he did for the genre long after he stopped acting. Jack Elam's role in Once Upon a Time in the West may have kept him from breaking free from typical casting, but it also gave him a kind of cinematic immortality. The price he paid was high, but the benefits for his lasting legacy were clear to spectators. His portrayal of tough, wild-eyed characters continues to define the spirit of the Western, making Jack Elam a timeless figure in American film. Elam passed away on October 20, 2003, at the age of 82. His death marked the end of an era for fans of classic westerns, but his legacy lives on through the many films and TV shows in which he appeared. He was more than just a character actor. Jack Elam was a one-of-a-kind actor who could make any part, no matter how minor, unforgettable. He had the uncommon capacity to make people both love and hate his characters, and people remember his work in American cinema with fondness and respect. Jack Elam's career shows how important it is to be yourself and keep going in Hollywood. He never looked like a typical leading man, but he didn't need to. His rough looks and innate charm made him a great choice. Talent allowed him to carve out a space in the industry that was uniquely his own. Elam's body of work spans decades, and his ability to evolve as an actor transitioning from villain to comedian demonstrated his range and adaptability. Audiences who grew up watching westerns in the 1950 seconds and 1960s will forever associate Jack Elam with the gritty, lawless world of the American frontier, but his work in comedy, especially later in his career, showcased his ability to entertain in new ways. His lasting impact on film and television, particularly in the Western genre, ensures that Jack Elam's legacy will endure for generations to come.